everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Let's Play Dragon Age Origins. Here in this episode, I'm going to read a couple of the Codex entries in regards to the Elvhen Pantheon. To inform those of you who are not familiar with Elvhen Pantheon about some information in regards to them. And for those of you who have been playing the Dragon Age games before, but may have skipped over the Codex entries, this is also for you. If this really doesn't interest you, you can feel free go ahead and skip this episode, and I will see you all next time. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and dive on in with Andruil, Goddess of the Hunt. Hear me, sons and daughters of the people. I am Sister of the Moon, Mother of Hares, Lady of the Hunt, Andruil. Remember my teachings. Remember the Vir Tanarhal, the way of the three trees that I have given you. Vir Asan, the way of the arrow. Be swift and silent. Strike true, do not waver. And let not your prey suffer. That is my way. Vir Bor Asan, the way of the bow. As the sapling bends, so must you. In yielding, find resilience. In pliancy, find strength. That is my way. Vir Adalen, the way of the wood. Receive the gifts of the hunt with mindfulness. Respect the sacrifice of my children. Know that your passing shall nourish them in turn. That is my way. Remember the ways of the hunter, and I shall be with you. From the charge of Andruil, Goddess of the Hunt. Dirthamin, Keeper of Secrets. The twins, Falondin and Dirthamin, are the eldest children of Elgarnon the Allfather and Mithal the Protector. The brothers were inseparable from the moment of their conception, known for their great love for each other. That is why we often speak of Falondin in one breath and Dirthamin the next, for they cannot bear to be apart, not even in our tales. When the world was young, the gods often walked the earth, and Falondin and Dirthamin were no exception. Both were delighted by the many wonders of our earth. They played with the animals, whispered to the trees, and bathed in the lakes and streams. Their days were filled with bliss, and they did not know sorrow. And one day, while passing through the forest, Falondin and Dirthamin came across an old and sickly deer resting beneath a tree. "Why do you sit so still, little sister?" asked Falondin. "Play with us," said Dirthamin. "Alas," spoke the deer, "I cannot. I am old, and although I wish to go to my rest, my legs can no longer carry me." Taking pity on the deer, Falondin gathered her up into his arms and carried her to her rest beyond the vale. Dirthamin tried to follow them, but the shifting gray paths beyond the vale would not let him. Separated for the first time from Falondin, Dirthamin wandered aimlessly till he came across two ravens. "You are lost, and soon you will fade," said the raven named Fear to Dirthamin. "Your brother has abandoned you. He no longer loves you," said the other, named Deceit. "I am not lost, and Falondin has not abandoned me," replied Dirthamin. He subdued the ravens and bade them carry him to Falondin. This they did, for they had been defeated and were now bound to Dirthamin's service. When Dirthamin found Falondin, he found also the deer, who once again was light on her feet, for her spirit was released from her weakened body. Both Falondin and Dirthamin rejoiced to see this. Falondin vowed that he would remain to carry all the dead to their place beyond, just as he did the deer. And Dirthamin stayed with him, for the twins cannot bear to be apart. From the story of Falondin and Dirthamin, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafirin clan of the Dalish Elves. Elgarnon, God of Vengeance. Long ago, when time itself was young, the only things in existence were the sun and the land. The sun, curious about the land, bowed his head close to her body, and Elgarnon was born in the place where they touched. The sun and the land loved Elgarnon greatly, for he was beautiful and clever. As a gift to Elgarnon, the land brought forth great birds and beasts of sky and forest, and all manner of wonderful green things. Elgarnon loved his mother's gifts and praised them highly and walked amongst them often. The sun, looking down upon the fruitful land, saw the joy that Algernon took in her works, and grew jealous. Out of spite he shone his face full upon the creatures the earth had created, and burned them all to ashes. The land cracked and split from bitterness and pain. They cried salt tears for the loss of all she had wrought. The land cracked and split from bitterness and pain, and cried salt tears for the loss of all she had wrought. The pool of tears cried for the land became the ocean, and the cracks in her body the first rivers and streams. Algernon was furious with what his father had done, and vowed vengeance. He lifted himself into the sky and wrestled the sun, determined to defeat him. They fought for an eternity, and eventually the sun grew weak. While Algernon's rage was unabated, eventually Algernon threw the sun down from the sky and buried him in a deep abyss created by the land's sorrow. With the sun gone, the world was covered in shadow, and all that remained in the sky were the reminders of Algernon's battle with his father, drops of the sun's lifeblood which twinkled and shimmered in the darkness. From the tales of Algernon and the sun, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafiran clan of the Dalish Elves. Falandin, friend of the dead, the guide. O Falandin, Lethanaviar, friend of the dead, guide my feet, calm my soul, lead me to my rest. In ancient times, the people were ageless and eternal, and instead of dying would enter Uthanera, the long sleep, and walk the shifting paths beyond the veil with Falandin and his brother Derthaman. Those elders would learn the secrets of dreams, and some returned to the people with newfound knowledge. But we quickened and became mortal. Those of the people who passed walked with Falandin into the beyond and never returned. If they took counsel with Derthaman on their passage, his wisdom was lost, for it went with them into the beyond as well, and never came to the people. Then Fen'Harel caused the gods to be shut away from us, and those who passed no longer had Falandin to guide them. And so we learned to lay our loved ones to rest with an oaken staff, to keep them from faltering along the paths, and a cedar branch to scatter the ravens named Fear and Deceit, who were once servants of Derthaman, now without a master. As told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafiran clan of the Dalish Elves. Fen'Harel, the Dread Wolf. There is precious little we know about Fen'Harel, for they say he did not care for our people. Algernon and Mithal created the world as we know it. Andruil gave us the ways of the hunter, Celise and June gave us fire and crafting, but Fen'Harel kept to himself and plotted the betrayal of all the gods. And after the destruction of Arlathan, when the gods could no longer hear our prayers, it is said that Fen'Harel spent centuries in a far corner of the earth, giggling madly and hugging himself in glee. The legends say that before the fall of Arlathan, the gods we know and revere fought an endless war with others of their kind. There is not a Haren among us who remembers these others. Only in dreams do we hear the whispered names of Geldauran and Dernthal and Aneris, for they are the forgotten ones, the gods of terror and malice, spite and pestilence. In ancient times, only Fen'Harel could walk without fear among both of our gods and the Forgotten Ones, for although his kin to the gods of the people, the Forgotten Ones knew his cunning ways and saw him as one of their own. And that is how Fen'Harel tricked them. Our gods saw him as a brother, and they trusted him when he said they must keep to the heavens while he arranged a truce. And the Forgotten Ones trusted him also when he said he would arrange for the defeat of our gods if only the Forgotten Ones would return to the abyss for a time. They trusted Fen'Harel, and they were all of them betrayed, and Fen'Harel sealed them away so they could never walk among the people. From The Tale of Fen'Harel's Triumph, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafiran clan of the Dalish Elves. Gillanane, mother of the Hala. They say Gillanane was one of the people in the days before Alarthan, and the chosen of Andruil the huntress. She was very beautiful, with hair snowy white, and as graceful as a gazelle. She kept always to Andruil's ways, and Andruil favored her above all others. One day, while hunting in the forest, Gillanane came across a hunter she did not know. At his feet lay a hawk, shot through the heart by an arrow. Gelinon was filled with rage, for the hawk, along with the hare, is an animal that is much beloved of Andruil. Gelinon demanded the hunter make an offering to Andruil in exchange for taking the life of one of her creatures. The hunter refused, and Gelinon called upon the goddess to curse him so that he could never again hunt and kill a living creature. Gelinon's curse took hold, and the hunter found that he was unable to hunt. His prey would always dart out of sight, and his arrows would fly astray. His friends and family began to mock him for his impotence, for what use was a hunter who could not hunt? Ashamed, the hunter swore he would find Gelinon and repay her for what she had done to him. He found Gelinon while she was out on a hunt with her sisters, and lured her away from them with lies and false words. He told Gelinon that he had learned his lesson, and begged her to come with him so she could teach him to make a proper offering to Andruil. Moved by his plea, Gelinon followed the hunter, and when they were away from all of her sisters, the hunter turned on Gelinon. He blinded her first, then bound her as one would bind a fresh kill from the hunt. But because he was cursed, the hunter could not kill her. Instead, he left her for dead in the forest. Gelinon prayed to the gods for help. She prayed to Elgarnon for vengeance, to the mother Mythal to protect her, but above all she prayed to Andruil. Andruil sent her hares to Gelinon, and they chewed through the ropes that bound her. But Gelinon was still wounded and blind, and could not find her way home. So Andruil turned her into a beautiful white deer, the first Hala, and Gelinon found her way back to her sisters and led them to the hunter, who was brought to justice. Since that day, the Hala have guided the people and have never led us astray, for they listen to the voice of Gelinon. From the Tale of Gelinon, as told by Gisharal. June, god of the craft. We dedicate all of our crafts to June, for it is he who taught the people to bend the branches of trees to make our bows, and to fashion coverings of furs and ironbark. Without June, would we have the ervel, or the harness for our Hala? When the people were young, we wandered the forest without purpose. We drank from streams and ate berries and nuts that we could find. We did not hunt, for we had no bows. We wore nothing, for we had no knowledge of spinning or needlecraft. We shivered in the cold nights and went hungry through the winters when all the world was covered in ice and snow. Then Celis, the hearth-keeper, came and gave us fire and taught us how to feed it to the wood. June taught us to fashion bows and arrows and knives so that we could hunt. We learned to cook flesh of creatures we hunted over Celis's fire, and we learned to clothe ourselves in their furs and skins, and the people were no longer cold and hungry, as told by Gisharal. Mythal, the Great Protector. Elgarnon had defeated his father the sun, and all was covered in darkness. Pleased with himself, Elgarnon sought to console his mother the earth by replacing all the sun had destroyed. But the earth knew that without the sun nothing could grow. She whispered to Elgarnon this truth, and pleaded with him to release his father. But Elgarnon's pride was great, and his vengeance was terrible, and he refused. It was at this moment that Mythal walked out of the sea of the earth's tears and onto the land. She placed her hand on Elgarnon's brow, and at her touch he grew calm, and knew that his anger had led him astray. Humbled, Elgarnon went to the place where the sun was buried and spoke to him. Elgarnon said he would release the sun if the sun promised to be gentle and to return to the earth each night. The sun, feeling remorse at what he had done, agreed. And so the sun rose again in the sky and shone his golden light upon the earth. Elgarnon and Mythal, with the help of the earth and the sun, brought back the life of the wonders that the sun had destroyed, and they grew and thrived. And that night, when the sun had gone to sleep, Mythal gathered the glowing earth around his bed and formed it into a sphere to be placed in the sky, a pale reflection of the sun's true glory. From the Tale of Mythal's Touch, as told by Gisharal. Celis, the Hearthkeeper. Celis, the Hearthkeeper, is seen as the sister of Andruil the huntress. While Andruil loved to run with the creatures of the wild, Celis preferred to stay by her home tree, occupying herself with gentle arts and song. It was Celis who first gave us fire and taught us how to use it. It was Celis who showed us how to heal with herbs and with magic, and how to ease the passage of infants into this world. And again, it is Celis who showed us how to spin the fibers of plants into thread and rope. We owe much to Celis, and that is why we sing to her when we kindle the fires and when we put them out. That is why we sprinkle our arvels with Celis's fragrant tree moss and ask that she protect them and all within, as told by Gisharal, keeper of the Ralphian clan. Alright, so that is the Elvhen Pantheon. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in this week. And in the meantime, in between time, till the next episode when we continue to explore these ruins, take care, have fun, happy trails.